that, right, it's Friday, it's coming to the end of the day, the chance of this move getting done today now is quite limited. You know, expectations are probably that we're going to stay and trade within this range for the rest of the day. So eventually, I think around 2 o'clock, we had another test towards the top of the range where nothing really happened. We couldn't extend at all, came straight back and tested VWAP. And this is where there was a bit of a change. You can see there's a bit of a pickup in volume as we start to push higher and testing the highs of the day. And the price action that we saw there, we're not actually going to see that price action now, but we started to see some big clips hitting into the highs, like 300 lots, 400 lots. And there was a distinct change to what had happened on the previous attempts at the high throughout the day, which were very lazy and drifty and nothing really of any note. So all of a sudden we're starting to see this step up in volume. You know, although it didn't break immediately, I think it was pushed back down like 5 or 6, maybe 7 ticks. There was certainly something to suggest that, you know, there's something a bit different going on now. Maybe we will get this move. Now we're going to join the price ladder in this small range here where we've broken out of the range, we've extended about 16, 17 ticks and everyone was quite satisfied with that. But what we want to look at is how this trader executed to show that, you know, if you're astute to the fact that we have all this open space that could potentially go, you know, it offered a really good small structure at the high of the day in order to play off and execute up higher, attacking these highs here. So we're going to pick up the price ladder now. You'll have to bear with me because it's quite a long move. So we've got our bunds here, and I think 28 is the new high that was made, and we could see trading all the way up through here there was a distinct change in volume and price action. We're seeing some bigger clips hitting up, taking out prices. You know, the auction was very good going up there, and then all of a sudden we're going to see it just start to churn and work this range from, I think it's about 21s to maybe 29s. I'm just going to speed it up a little bit. So just looking at what the trader here is considering, he may or may not have got long into that move, but he knows that there's those highs that need to be attacking. He's trying to think, right, where can I get on this move, take minimal risk, and really play through those 38s and 50s or even higher if the price action continue and we continue to see these big clips lifting up through the high. Another thing to bear in mind as well is what we have had throughout the week was, you know, a bit of risk-off, peripheral risk-off sentiment, well, particularly with the BTPs. The new Italian government's been formed. BTPs sold off, you know, a few points, I think. And all throughout this move, the bunds have been bid up as the spread's been put on. So just carrying a bit of risk into the weekend. There's also a thing that should be in the back of your mind that potentially there's going to be some hedging in the bunds. You know, we might see a bid up in the, well, most likely the German 10-year going into the weekend, as people don't really want to be left too exposed to any new developments that might occur in the Italians throughout the Italian political space. Not necessarily definitely the case, but something to bear in mind. So we're in the ladder and we're seeing that this actually rotates here for a while, and we're building up a bit of volume between 29s and 23s. We've got a low volume node at 22s, and we just want to see how it trades into that. So we're seeing 81 lots hit down into 23s. Can't really stay offered at 23s here. So straight away, you're considering, right, these 22s are potentially an area of importance. Again, there, you know, we've gone off for 24s. 24s reloading, but can't go off at 23s. Nothing really hitting down and we've come back up. So there's quite a good reference point there for if you wanted to structure a trade for a play all the way through. The only other thing to bear in mind is we've already done 16 ticks on what extended above the highs of the day on a day that everyone probably thought was done and dusted ever anyway. So, you know, you probably might want to wait for a bit more confirmation. Sorry, just going back there. 22s took quite a big clip and reloaded. It's now holding up. We've got one lot into the lows, two lots into the lows, 22s. 300 lots, 600 lots into 22s, but it's staying bid. There's someone holding these 22s bid. So we've got a real line in the sand now for if this is to continue going higher, we really want this level to hold. So the two options you have to execute this are whether we want to position here at the bottom of what's looking like a 5-minute flag at the highs of the days, or execute through the highs. So we're just going to see what this trader chose to do. Let me just fast forward this a little bit more. So it's at really high speed now, but this does go on for a while. And I think something to draw from this is just the patience that this trader had in executing this play. For myself personally, I was exhausted by this point. I'd been buying on the initial breakouts. You know, I think I'd been trying to get long around this sort of area and puking a couple of times down. Just shows the experience that you have, that where you can see someone really planning the trade and knowing that if we do break through this level, with all this open space, you know, you shouldn't see it back into this flag. You know, this area, if it's been auctioned well enough, you know, you've got a defined stop and you only need to take this trade on once. You don't need to be that dynamic in this trade. Again, we're seeing 22s tested, absorbing 100 lot, 50 lots. Okay, here we go. So again, can't take 22s offered. And we're now trading up higher, and I think at this point the trader's really looking to execute through the highs. He's made his decision. He's not going to execute down here, and he's going to move up. I'm just going to fast forward this a little bit more. Okay, so now we're on double speed, and we're just going to see how he executes through the highs on this play. So we're still seeing quite good churn in this area, and the longer we spend here, actually, the longer we put in volume towards the highs. I think the probability of having that extension up through actually starts to increase. So we've held 22s. We're trading higher. We start to see 85 lots takes 25 bid, and then reloads. The churn's quite good in this area, especially compared to what we've been seeing all day. So as long as you're still seeing that churn, I think you're also, you know, it's adding to the list of criteria that you're looking for this type of trade to be met. 100 lots into 26s. We've got 1,000 lot here at 28s that I think sometimes that can actually work as a, we've got 2,000 lots, you know, work in your favour. You see these so often in the bunds, they're put there, they try to scare the buyers away, and then as soon as they're approached, if they disappear, you've got a good chance that the market's going to flip up through those levels and, well, not necessarily flip, but trade up through those levels. Right, so 100 lots traded into 27s. Immediately, we haven't seen it trade this price. I'm going to slow it down just quickly here. So he's bought a small clip at 27s. And we've ticked up to 29s. And now he's thinking, well, at least I believe he's thinking, right, where can I get my size on here? How can I define my risk and get some more size on? And you don't really want to be carrying now, you know, a few clips or a lot of size back down towards these 22s. So you really want to see some churn, you want to see the bid hold and be able to position yourself accordingly so you can really tighten up your risk. But I think the expectation of this trade is, as we start trading up, there shouldn't really be, for this move to really play out as expected, you know, you shouldn't expect it to rotate and grind higher. The pace that we've done the initial move up to this 20s to 29s range, you expect that to continue and all the way up to those levels that we've targeted at 38s and 50s. So it's got 10 lots in. Okay, straight away we've traded up through 29s, 30s. It's got another clip in. It's now 20 lots long at 29s and starting to look for, haven't really seen it trade below 27s, 26. So at this point, I think you're probably taking 3 ticks risk. You might have to start scaling out below here, but as long as the churn's good and as long as you're seeing clips lifting into the highs, you want to stay with this trade. So you're seeing 28s reload here, 60 lots lifted up into 29s. The book's just starting to thicken up a little bit on the bid. And if we can get through this 1,000 lot of 30s, if that's pulled, you could really see a move up. You see we've got another 1,000 lot up at 35s. Straight away 29s goes bid. It's got another clip in and risk is now defined, I'd say, below that 26s level. You don't want to be seeing this offside coming back into this volume bubble. You've got a nice high volume node here, 25, 23, 24, 25s, and you've got good positioning on this trade now to see up and see us lift up towards those 38s. Again, the book thickening up a bit more. Just notice we haven't really managed to pull back for this proportion of the move, breaking through those 27s, 28s. As soon as we got through this area, we've only come back a couple of ticks. So sort of showing the size of the rotations that you're happy to see and you really want to continue seeing as this move continues. Okay, so 400 lots lifted into the highs, 1,400 lots traded at the highs. At this point, you've got to be pretty confident that seeing the setup, the technical structure, you know, you've got a relatively good entry. You don't really want to be adding into the highs too much more now. I think you've got your clip in, you know your risk, you've got your 3 ticks risk or so where you'd be looking to scale out quite quickly if the price action changed, but you don't want to be messing around too much with this trade. Just let the price action continue, let the increased velocity drive this trade up. And at this point, it's actually quite scary to see the 1,000 lot on the bid for the same reason I explained before. You know, if we come and trade down to that, sometimes it could, you know, it could result in all the bids being pulled and it's to quickly trade back down. So I think at this point, it's potentially becoming a little bit astute to that and just being ready just to get out of some size if we all of a sudden very quickly move down. But as long as we're staying in this area, he's happy to stay in the trade. Just notice as well the size that's going through. This hasn't really changed at this point, so you know you're not seeing any real distinct change in the velocity. So there's no reason to get out. If you've got your hard stop and you know where you've decided you believe this trade should reach, you know there's no need to really get out of this trade until it starts coming back into this volume area here. Don't get me wrong, this is probably the time in the trade where, you know, you've been on side, you've been seeing everything you want. All of a sudden now, you know, you've probably got towards the bigger end of your size on, and you're starting to feel a little bit of pressure that if at any point you start to see this book thin out, or these 800, 900 lots get taken out, you know, you're really ready to start scaling out quite quickly. But here, all of a sudden, taking 30s bid, we're going to see some size hitting into the highs now at 31s. 250 lots into the highs. You know, we're going to see this price being taken out, and then we're going to see the bid reloading on anything that's coming back. So the churn's still very good, still seeing everything that you want to see in this trade. Okay, Okay, just slowing down a little bit now. Quite often before that flush to really propel you out of the flag, you know, it can quieten down. It can make the doubters lose their bottle and really kind of shake the weak hands out here. So just speeding this up a little bit now. Okay, we're at double speed now, and again, nothing's really changed. We've still not been able to really test into these 27s. You know, you can see the trader's got his levels established here. He knows where he's attacking. And there's no reason to really play around with this trade too much, so long as you're seeing this volume go through. Okay, right, we've taken 30s bid again. 31s, 1,000 lots done at the highs. You know, you would think that's not really going to be the end of the move. 300 lots into the highs. Taken 31s bid and reloaded right straight away. 31s, the bid really thickened up. We want to see that reloading now. I think what we're seeing here as well, from my perspective of watching the trade play out and really being quite frustrated that I wasn't involved, it all happened a lot quicker, whereas if you put yourself in the position of being in the trade, it just shows how much patience you need to have to really kind of let these trades play out. You know, it's not just quick easy money every time. In fact, it very rarely is. Those that are still got their attention and still being objective in the trade late into a Friday afternoon, they're the ones that are going to be rewarded with this. Okay, so we're taking 31's bid, and really now you're starting to see the momentum come through. You know, he probably wouldn't want to see us move too far back below these 28s here. You know, we've got a bit of a high volume node where the churn really stepped up 28s, 29s, and now it's just a matter of sitting on this trade, again, not being too dynamic in it, not giving you too much reason to mess it up really. You know, you've got a good entry, you're 3-4 ticks on the side. You've established where you're going to start scaling out. You know where your final stop is, and now it's just a matter of just seeing this trade through and just letting the increased velocity really start churning and taking out these prices. 34s, 35s, 36. You've got to think as soon as we're getting through 36s, you know, these 38s, they're there for the taking, and seeing the reaction through those 38s, it's going to give you an opportunity to really gauge whether the 50s are also there to be taken. And as long as this volume's there, you don't want to be getting out this trade. You know, you just want to sit back and relish in the fact that you've got a good entry, you're seeing everything that you want to see from a volume perspective, you've sat through the hard part of the trade, and now you can really just put you in a position you've just got to think, how am I going to scale out of this trade? So I'm just going to fast forward this a little bit more. Okay, so we're approaching 38s. That's our first level swing high on the 5 minute from the prior day, I believe. We're just going to see how the trader looks to scale out of this trade. So it's got 40 lots on. And he wants to see the momentum continue through these 38s. But at the same time, you've got to be aware that, okay, say we trade through these 38s and the velocity dies down, you know, you don't want to be watching a decent couple of clips come all the way back on you and give back, you know, what you've really worked quite hard to get out of this move. Right. So here we go. Pushing the 38s, 37s, reloading on the bid. You know, volume's still high. We're trading, you know, 3,000 or 4,000 lots at every price on the way up. We're building quite a good base that this shouldn't necessarily, you know, just whip back on you now. You've got some good volume. There's a bit of a backstop there. 1,000 lots into the highs. There's no reason to get out of this trade. You know, you've surpassed your first level, your first target. And now you've got to think, right, am I going to watch this all the way through, trading up to the 50s with my full size? Or at what point do I want to consider potentially scaling out of a bit? Okay, so we traded up with 40s, 1,000 lot at 42s, 1,000 lot at 45s. But straight away, there's always people willing to lift into the highs. That's what you want to see. You know, you want to see big clips lifting up, attacking the highs, and that momentum continuing through your targets. All right. Okay, so this is 4 times speed now. We're just going to have to speed this up a little bit so you can see. It's obviously at this point, fantastic trade. You know, you're well on side. You know, you've got good size in. You're breaching levels. You're seeing big clips still continue to hit into the highs. And I think that's one thing that, you know, we can take away from this trader. He never faltered on his plan. As long as he was seeing what he wanted to see, he was willing to stay with the trade. And something that certainly myself as a more junior trader, that I'm really trying to take, you know, be objective in the trade. It doesn't matter how far on side yours, it doesn't matter how unexpected this move is, you know, it's still good reason to stay with it and just give yourself, give it a chance to play out. You know, if you're surprised by what you're seeing, great. You know, you've worked an amazing position, amazing entry, and now you can really just let it play out. So in fact, trading through 38s, there was no reason to get any out. So 50s is the second level. So a quarter of his size is out. 53s, it's got another quarter. So he's reduced his position by half as we've reached this level. It's left with 20 lots on. Now it's a case of, right, I've scaled out of half my size. You know, I've got good clip in. Let's see how much I can eke out of this. I just want to slow this down to just show you that even at 1.5 times speed, you know, we've gone this whole way and you're still seeing the same price action. We're still not seeing any deep rotations. So as soon as this starts to rotate more than maybe 2 or 3 ticks from the high, you know, that's when you're starting to question whether, not necessarily it's the complete end of the move, you don't need to make any rash decisions, but, you know, is the pace starting to slow down? Because that whole move, although I had to speed it up and kind of fast forward through it, you know, it does show that we were just stuck to the highs there. Everyone else on the floor were looking at this move thinking, oh my God, firstly, how can we not get in this move? Gave you no opportunity to get in, which I think, especially for that time of day and for that type of setup where you're really breaching into some open space that hasn't been traded for the whole week. You know, there aren't any levels that have been traded out. There aren't any, you know, volume bubbles where you might get a little bit of resistance. It's literally just, right, we're setting off. As long as no one's looking to hit down at market aggressively, this is going to keep grinding up and grinding up and grinding up as people are lifting prices and willing to hit towards the highs. So this is the first time we've seen, you know, we've traded up to 54s and we're starting to rotate back a little bit. And, you know, I think quite prudently, 20 ticks on side, you think, right, now's a good time to start scaling out my clip. He's down to a quarter of his size. Quick look at his charts. We've got a level that I think it's a long-term trend line from 60-minute chart that comes up, I think comes in around 69s. And, you know, you can start to think, right, I've scaled out most of my clip and I'm in a really good position that if this does want to continue going, that I can really hold into that level, you know. Now just try to establish a range where you're rotating in. We've got a low volume node here at 47s. So maybe think, right, if we breach these 47s, I'll get out. I've scaled out nicely within a sort of, you know, 5 to 7 tick range. And, you know, I've done quite well to get that portion of the move. But still the trader, you know, this is something that, again, is quite impressive for this time of day on a Friday, that, you know, he's still got that aggression that he's not just looking to bank this winner and get on with it and go home and pack up for the day and you know, get on the train or go out for a few beers. He's still willing to see, right, as long as I'm seeing us hold above this low volume node at 47s, there's no reason to get out of this trade. And now we're starting to build some volume where you could potentially be thinking, right, maybe we do have another leg in here. Now I'm not going to show you all of it because we could be here forever, but I think so 62s was the final area. The recording unfortunately actually finishes there, but 62s where he was scaling out again half of what the remaining size he had on, and I think we traded all the way up to like 74s, and I think everyone was quite bewildered that out of a complete dead duck of a day, you know, we've been trading within a 20 tick range, going absolutely nowhere on no volume, all of a sudden going into the Friday close, the market's just sprung into life and we've had a 70 tick move or something like that we've seen. So really for me the key takeaways are just the patience that the trader had. You know, he wasn't exhausted in that first leg of the move. You didn't need to tire yourself out buying highs over and over and over again. You know, wait for the structure to form, wait for the volume to confirm it, and then it's, you know, I'm not saying to go and buy the highs on every trade, but you know, if the setup's there and you're seeing the price action that you want, and you know that there's good targets and nothing really in between those if you are to set off and get propelled forward, then, you know, why not take the risk at the highs? Why not wait for that full confirmation before you commit to the trade, but know what you want to see, know the sort of price action that you want to see. And I think here was a prime example of, you know, someone who was so astute to that sort of price action, where I think if you were to look at this on a 1 minute chart, it would have one time framed a whole move. You know, you wouldn't have seen the low of a 1 minute candle been taken out, and just trusting that that doesn't happen very often, especially in the Bund. So when you do see it, if you've got a good entry, stay with the trade. Like, really try to eat this for as much as it's worth, because you know, these opportunities don't come about very often, and certainly for me it was just an invaluable lesson in focus as a relatively newer trader. You know, you get to Friday and you're so beat up sometimes that, you know, you're handed a 70 tick move, not on a platter, but you know, you're given the best opportunity of the week, probably bar first thing on a Monday morning. And the Bunds have these, you know, they have these frequency of waiting until everyone's as frustrated and tired as they can be, and that's when the opportunity comes, and it rewards those that are really astute to the changes in price action.